views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting groups. If you'd like to produce a show, call us at 260-421-1250.
Let me be your lighthouse so I can show you the way. Let me be your shining light, I'll keep you from drifting away. I'm the one that makes you try when...
Sexual predators and comprehensive sex education both break down inhibitions. That's what they start with. They also gain trust with the child and then slowly start to get them towards sexual activity.
Anything goes. You are teaching children adult child sex, you're teaching transgender issues, and you know, children are moldable and influenced by that.
They said, okay, now we need you and your team to be able to explain what homosexuality is to a 4-year-old student.
To introduce this kind of material at that age, frankly, it's child abuse.
You're going to teach our children that it's okay for any two children of any age, of any sex, to have sexual intercourse with each other as long as two components are present. One's using a condom and they both give consent. Did I hear that correctly?
It's not a neutral venue. There's no such thing. Okay, the schools are doing your job. They are discipling your children, but they're not discipling them in the faith of Jesus Christ.
It's only the exceptional child that even survives that system. Most do not survive, most have not survived.
They believe that children are sexual from birth and that they deserve and have the right to be sexually active and to seek sexual pleasure. And if anyone is stopping them from that, then you are judging and oppressing them.
Even kindergarten now, they're wanting to teach them more and more perverse information and acts and put that into the children's minds. And once that poison is in a child's mind, it doesn't leave. They'll always remember what they learned. And it's by design, it's orchestrated.
In my humble opinion, it will be worse before it gets better.
Hello, this is Patty Hunter of Patty's Page. Welcome to my show. Today, my special guests on Zoom are Mark and Amber Archer. Hello.
Hello. Hello, Patty.
And they are a husband and wife filmmaking team and founders of the filmmaking ministry, Fearless Features, Inc.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
So today we'll be chatting about your latest documentary.
Mm-hmm.
And what is the title of it?
Well, it's called The Mind Polluters, and it's about the graphic sex ed in the school systems and an array of other things that are impacting our kids in the government-run school systems.
When did that come about? I mean, how long ago did that start?
Which part? Well, it's been decades that we've been having problems in the school systems.
The 60s?
Well, actually, if you go into a little bit of the history of this all goes back to the late 40s, a guy by the name of Alfred Kinsey.
Wow.
And Kinsey was the one, he wrote 2 books, Sexual Behavior in the Human Male, Sexual Behavior in the Human Female, 1947 and 53. Mm-hmm. And those books were credited with starting the sexual revolution. Mm-hmm. And what the film goes into is talking about the roots of his supposed research and his his assumptions of
human sexuality, prevalence of homosexuality, all that kinds of things, they were all based on faulty, fake data, basically. And research, yeah.
And so
he made it all up.
He made it all up, yeah. In fact, and he was bankrolled by the Rockefeller Foundation. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that a lot of people don't know. It was all planned a long time before. And with Kinsey, they found just the pervert that they needed, who had the platform to do it. He was a professor at Indiana University and had the platform to disperse this fake information.
Mm-hmm. Garbage.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a documentary. Who were your guests? Were they weren't actors. They were real people in the profession. Who were they? Can you name a few?
Yeah, people who have been working in this field for decades. Dr. Judith Reisman, she was at Liberty University. She passed away earlier this year in April. Fortunately, we were able to interview her December of last year, so she's in the film. Craig Sawyer, a retired Navy SEAL, SEAL Team 6. He runs a group and an organization called Veterans for Child Rescue. So he's all about taking down the pedophiles and people out there harming children. Ken Ham of Answers in Genesis, Debbie DeGroff, Mary McAllister. I mean, there are many people in the film.
So how did they, with their information and their expertise, they managed, you ask questions about what and why the schools are doing this to our kids, or how did you go about asking them questions?
So it depends on who you're talking to. Mm-hmm. Part of the, when you're doing a documentary, the casting process, if you will, is more researching the people that you think you might want to talk to, and letting them talk about what their expertise is and how that will play into the story overall. So you're trying to get people that aren't all going to necessarily talk about the same thing, but they're going to talk about the same thing from different angles. And so that's how it all goes together. So for instance, somebody like Ken Ham, who's in the film, he told us very plainly he didn't know a whole lot about the history of the education system in the US or Alfred Kinsey. And we said, that's okay. We want you to talk about worldview, because that's what this really all boils down to. And Alex Newman, who's in the film, he writes for the Epoch Times and the New American. He knows an awful lot. He does a lot of research on SEL and
which is social emotional learning,
right?
Oh,
and has a lot of the history that he can talk about. Judith Reisman had a lot of really deep research knowledge on Alfred Kinsey. And Craig Sawyer doesn't necessarily work in the educational space, but he could speak to what sexual predators look like and how they act and how they groom children, and how it is parallel to what the teachers are doing in the schools with this sex ed curriculum. So that's how you talk to them. You go to someone and you talk to them about what it is that they do, knowing that there's a way that all of that will tie together with what everybody else is saying.
Well, why did the school system allow people like these teachers to teach all this to our young ones? Why?
Well, they're all just as much victims of the system as the kids are. It starts in the universities where they're trained, and then those teachers go into the schools and they're taught to, this is the standard, if you will, of what you teach. And so they don't really know any different. There are good teachers out there who, frankly, are victims of the education system as well.
Yeah. Not all of them. Not all of them. We're certainly not making the case with the film that all teachers are evil
Oh,
or
no.
anything.
Yeah.
There are a lot of great teachers
And great schools.
right? But they're not allowed educational freedom anymore. So
Yeah.
they have to teach what they are given. They don't get to choose the curriculum. The curriculum is chosen by people higher up. And as you go higher up, there are people at every level in it. But as you go higher up, the knowledge of what's really being done and the purposefulness of it increases. So the people higher up at the top, they understand full well what they're doing. And to
who
be
are
honest,
they, the upper people? Who are they? Government? Are they rich people? Yeah.
well, it's the people in the educational system. So whether it's
We have the Indiana State Teachers Association, ISTA, and they vote on and make a lot of standards for our state of Indiana. So if you go and look through their handbook, you will see a litany and an array of what they believe that they should be teaching the students. And a lot of times it does not, because they're trying to teach kids values and morals and beliefs and change their belief system. It will conflict with what's possibly taught at home if you're a family of faith and believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. Those things are what's being disseminated to students.
and a lot of them too. I mean, it's pushed heavily by the teachers union.
Yeah.
The NEA is the most powerful union in the nation, probably in the world. And the NEA is run by communists. So so they are operating with full knowledge of their agenda to dumb down the population, to inject this perverse worldview and to sexualize children. It's part of the Communist Manifesto. It's part of the
Taking over?
What's that?
That part of them trying to take over this country?
Oh yes. Yeah. So it's all part of the master plan. There's so much going on. We spend the time in the film explaining to parents and grandparents what's actually happening, what all these things are, and then
showing them proof and examples of what kids are being taught.
Yeah.
And when the parents see this documentary of yours, how can they reach out to you to seek help for the children or to any other person who can help?
Well, you really need to get involved in the local groups. There are a lot of parent groups popping up all over the United States right now, and people are pushing back. And actually, parents are winning in many states right now against the comprehensive sex ed, against the critical race theory, against the books, the pornographic books in the libraries. So it's most certainly make sure to reach out in your local area. Social media is a great place to find people. And we have an organization here in Indiana called Purple for Parents. If you get on Purple for Parents Indiana, then they can go on there and connect there with people. And a lot of people in that group, we have people who are located in Florida who are a part of that group. We had someone who's running for office in Florida reach out to us through Purple for Parents. So there's a lot of good groups who are helping to do great things around the country.
So
Moms for Liberty is another one. Great place to start for parents wanting to get involved.
How long did it take to make this movie, this documentary?
14 months.
This one was about 14 months, yeah.
And when will it be released?
Well, it's already being shown in select cities across the nation.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So you can go on the website, themindpolluters.com, and there's events and screenings listed. We've got some in Georgia. A lot is happening right now, planned for January. So there's a lot going to be happening in Nebraska and Florida, Texas, Indiana, Georgia. Did I already say Georgia?
Here in Florida, Fort Wayne, will it be shown here?
Yes, there's a couple screenings in the works for Fort Wayne area.
Oh, do let me know so I can let it.
Yeah.
The film really was designed for that in-person screening setting, because there's so much information that when you're done watching it, you need to be able to plug in and say, okay, now what? And so
that was our job, where we connected with other organizations, like you were just asking about. Where do they go from after watching the film? How do they get involved? And that's what we've done, is we've partnered with organizations across the nation to host the screening so that they can be that point of contact for parents and get involved in their communities to help make a difference in their children's lives and their communities.
Will this be in cinemas or theaters, whatever?
What's that?
no, it's not going to be in theaters. It's we designed it for being played in churches primarily. There's some screenings that are taking place in libraries, which is interesting.
And some like conference facilities.
Yeah, some conference facilities, but no, and just to be practical about it, theaters are very expensive real estate to occupy.
Yeah.
And so while we would love to see it played in some theaters, it's expensive to rent theaters, and so probably won't see it in the theater.
So how will you reach out to all the churches to see if they can be able to show the congregation this?
Well, people are contacting us. I mean, word is spreading fast, and it's whoever. We tell people, send us an email. Let us know if you have a church and you'd like this shown in your church. Then we're more than happy to get you with a contact in our area or in your area to host a screening at your local church.
Is it a DVD or online?
Not yet. That won't be available till spring of 2022.
So when you're showing the congregation, how do you do it? Is it via computer? How?
Yeah, it's a streaming link. Yeah.
Stream.
Yeah.
Well, do you think you'd be writing a book about this for later?
There are many books that have already been written about the subject.
Yeah, there's a lot.
There's a lot of our research.
There's a lot of books, I think, on this that are. I haven't felt called yet to write a book about this, just because I think there's so many other books out there that are better. So we'll see. But I'm not working on a book about this one in particular yet. I think I would be saying a lot of the same things over again that other people have already said better. So,
and the movie speaks for itself.
What are some of the things being taught, like LGBT or transgenderism? I know there's a whole raft of stuff that is not right for our kids that they're teaching. Let's go into that.
Well, we have in the film has comprehensive sex ed, otherwise known as CSE. So you got the alphabet soup in the schools right now. You got CRT, which is critical race theory. You've got social emotional learning, it's SEL. You've got CSE, comprehensive sex ed. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. You got the LGBTQ and everything going on in there. So the film covers the comprehensive sex ed, the transgender movement, obscenity exemptions, and legislative process. Because there are 43 states who have obscenity exemptions specifically for schools and public libraries, meaning they can disseminate pornographic material harmful to minors in the classroom, and they're exempt from prosecution. So we go into that. There's links between the grooming, global grooming, and child sex trafficking, social emotional learning, data mining, and surveys in the schools. Those are extremely dangerous, and parents need to opt their children out of surveys. The graphic fictional books in the school libraries, clash of worldview, and role of the church and the family. And so that's really like an abbreviation of what we cover through the film in the hour 45 minutes.
So for the hour and 45 minutes, I was thinking, is it just the public schools? Is it in private schools too?
No, anybody who takes government funding is susceptible to what's happening.
So we have to scream out more to the people in the communities what's happening to our kids.
Yeah.
Because our kids are going to turn out really mixed up, and they don't know what sex there are and all that jazz. And some people are talking about binary, they're non-sexual, whatever they are. Hello.
There are kids, and it's perfectly acceptable in some of the schools, even here in Indiana, for kids to dress up as cats and to wear ears and pretend that they're laying in windows and purring during class. I mean, these are things that are really happening. These are real.
Like a mental illness.
It is.
Yeah, it is, and you can't call it that anymore. And that's the thing. It's not.
But I'll
not
call it
politically
that.
correct.
I'll call it that. It's a mental illness. It's a spiritual illness.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
It's a denial of reality.
Yeah. I was going to say, there's a lot of strange things happening in our schools. And I think the parents should be, like you said, aware of what's going on to their little kids.
Not only aware, but taking action to protect their children. I mean, you don't have to save everybody's kids. You just start with your own home and your own children so that they have a brighter future. Because what's happening, a lot of parents have no idea what's even happening in the schools, which is why the film was made in the first place. We were shocked. We had no idea. We were just like every other parent. We didn't know that they were teaching these things and that this is what children are being exposed to. Our children don't go to public school, so we had no idea, so even though just because our kids don't, it's important for us to all stand up and rally to protect the children, the innocence of their mind. Let them be children.
Wow. Because we are definitely our brother's keepers. And we have to help our human race from being destroyed by Satan himself, because that is not logical what's happening to our children in there. It is evil, and it's destroying the family. Dysfunction.
Oh yeah, Monique Klein.
Yeah, and if you look at you look at all the problems that we have just here in America and all the things that you watch the news and you think, how in the world can these people actually believe that what they're doing is right? Well, it's because of their worldview. They have
they're
a
without
corrupted worldview. It happened generations ago when we took God out of schools and prayer out of schools and started teaching that instead of God at the head of all things, that now man is the head of all things, and that man is the center of all things. And so humanism took over, and moral relativism. So we saw this, coming up through the late 80s into the early 90s. Moral relativism. We used to say, one man's ceiling is another man's floor. It all started with pornography. And it's relative, if that's okay for you, but I'm not going to do that. Well, now it's just accelerated like a snowball going down a hill. And now you've got an entire generation that's being taught that biology isn't biology. Yes is no and no is yes. Nothing's right, everything's wrong. And
That's
so
in the Bible, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah, that Revelation.
Yeah, we're in, it's the book of Romans.
Book of Romans. Sorry.
Yeah. And so where do we think our nation is going to be in 20 years when this generation that doesn't even understand that they're a boy or a girl?
No absolutes.
They have zero absolutes. They think everything is awash in fluid. So are they going to, these are the children that are going to be in positions of leadership, whether it's in or government.
We're in trouble.
Right. So we have to stop this. This is do or die for us.
People are becoming more aware of what abortion is and everything else. And they're starting becoming more compassionate towards the children, not killing them. There's still Planned Parenthood out there. And they're not helping us either in the schools as well. And if we can stop those people who are trying to destroy the minds of our children, where would you like? Where can we start? I know with the parents. What with the government? Vote the right people in.
It's really important to know who and where your children are going to school. Who's teaching them? Who's on your school board? Who's making decisions on your family's behalf? I would start there. Understand and making sure that you're showing up at school board meetings if you're able. Are you registered to vote? Those people are all elected officials. Though you need to understand who's in your district, who are you voting for. Don't just leave those spaces blank or vote straight ticket. You need to know who these people are. You're entrusting your children to go to a system that you aren't there to protect them, and they aren't wise enough and aren't filled with enough salt from Scripture to understand how to. We're sending them to the front lines of the battle, and they need a protector. They can't be out there fighting these battles with no weapons, no armor.
Mm-hmm. And the theme of the film too, really, the film is aimed at the church, the body of Christ, because the point of it for us is there's no point in us trying to make this argument to the dead. The people that don't have Christ, they're spiritually dead. So these arguments,
they don't understand it anyway,
mean nothing to them. Those who understand are the ones that have to get involved. They have to engage, and it has to start with their own children and their own household. That's how, because you can't just legislate this away.
No.
Right? I mean, we have laws against pedophilia already.
Yeah.
It hasn't stopped it, right? Because as we've seen, because we've got a generation in charge that has grown up with moral relativism, then
it's really a heart issue.
Then it's a heart issue. So they say, well, I'm not going to enforce that law. Well, a prosecutor doesn't have that discretion, but they've given themselves that discretion, right? So you see it at the Supreme Court. You see it with the legislatures all across the nation. So it has to start in the hearts and minds of the Christians. So the church has to get involved.
What would you like to share with my audience? This is getting towards the end of our show.
I think just be prayerful, get involved, make sure that you're available. We all have a part to play in God's kingdom. One body, many parts, 1 Corinthians 12. Allow the Lord to use you. Be open to being in his service and watch him work.
Yeah. Several years ago, we did a project, and one of the people that we filmed was Dr. Alan Keyes. And he basically said, yeah, we're complaining about this and we're complaining about that. Well, I suggest that you go home and start by looking in the mirror. And he said, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Where have you been? And you see a lot of that. Listen, we all have frustration. We all feel frustrated across the board, but it's no reason to give up.
Right.
That just means Forrest Moriarty, who founded Purple for Parents in Arizona, he gave a great talk a couple months ago at the Purple for Parents Indiana conference, and he gave a good illustration. He said, when you start getting flack from all sides, you know what that means, don't you? It means you're over the target.
Yeah.
Right? They don't shoot at you. Yeah. They don't shoot at you unless you're near something sensitive.
Raw, very raw.
And so using that, that air warfare illustration, I've thought about that and what Alan Keyes said. What are you saying? Go get close to the target. And that means that you got to have your armor on.
Yep.
So
put on the full armor of God.
So this is the end of the show. Thank you, Mark and Amber Archer. We will definitely be looking for your show in the future. So God bless. We'll see you next week, people. Thank you for joining me.
Godspeed.